Ladies and gentlemen, a very, very warm welcome to you all. It's been 3 weeks now since you last saw us live, so it's very, very good to be back. And this is a particularly interesting stream. There's no Starship flying today, but one did take flight in a rather dramatic way on June 18th. So if you haven't yet seen, Ship 36 unfortunately had very much rapid unscheduled disassembly while they were doing some pressure testing at the Massey's test facility just west of Starbase. Now, we'll be telling you all about this because I'm joined by two very special guests. We've got our very own The Space Engineer, who's a core part of the Interstellar Gateway team, and also Zach from CSI Starbase, who'll be a fantastic guy to talk about with regards to the GSE, everything technical that Starship has to offer. So if you two want to introduce yourselves, tell the audience a little bit about yourselves.
Hey guys, most of you know me as the Space Engineer on Twitter. We're gonna see some pretty gnarly damage today, I think.
Alrighty, well, hello everybody. I'm not sure if we're having some microphone issues.
I think it sounds fine.
Or if
I
it's
think we're
just
looking
me.
just good.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Zach, can you hear us okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, we're all okay here, Zach.
Did we lose them?
So I think on my side I'm having some issues. Let me get that resolved really quick for y'all. Sorry if I'm talking over anybody.
Okay, while we do, Zach may have lost audio with us here, which I'm sure I'm going to work behind the scenes. It's really good to see you all here. Thank you so much for joining in. I see you've got a very, very active chat, and of course, we've got a whole lot of pictures to come through. We were very lucky to get a flyover at a very, very useful time and get some fantastic pictures thanks to our internal crew, Brandon and Joshua. So, you know what, TSE, do you want to tell us a bit more about what we're looking at right now with this first picture?
Sure. I mean, right now we are looking, of course, over Massey's test site with quite a lot of debris spread around. So, I mean, I'm not really sure what to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to see that it looks like a lot of stuff has got kicked into the river as well. Obviously, we had some photos come out from What About It. We were particularly lucky to be able to get a view from just over the side
Let's
of
see.
Mexico
Can you
as
guys hear
well.
me now? I know the
Aha,
chat can
hello,
hear
Yes,
me.
Zach.
sir.
I see that.
Right, have you got some luck here?
This is fairly odd.
Okay, we are having to work some issues, I'm afraid. As in a typical IGW fashion, we may have started on time, but we've always got to sort something. In the meanwhile, loads of people in the chat, and DJ Esmeralda with 10 IGW gift memberships. Thank you very much, my friend. It is, of course, your support that
So
makes all
sorry
of this
everybody, I'm
possible.
going to restart on my side really quick, and hopefully it'll work the second time.
I think that's pretty reasonable. I think that's pretty fair. These things aren't cheap. Would you believe it? We do actually have to spend money sometimes, so any support that you can give us is massively appreciated. And of course, all of these fantastic views are powered by the support that we get directly from you, which you can help with by taking a look at our merch shop, which I believe we may have some pictures of from shop.igw.llc. There's some fantastic stuff on there, and hopefully some Rudd themed stuff as well, which you can have a look see at. While we wait for Zach to come back on, we'll see if we've got some more imagery for you to take a look at. This one is particularly meaty. TSE, what can you tell us here?
Well, there is quite a lot of detail that we saw here. Most notably, I think, in my opinion, would be the common dome that you can see on the right side. If you can zoom in on there. I don't know if we can right now because Zach's gone, but that very interestingly colored mangled bit of metal over there sitting on the methane tank farm is the
All right,
part of
guys,
the common
we
dome.
back. I'm good now.
Aha, hello Zach. Can
Oh
I actually
yeah,
talk to you now?
okay.
I can hear you guys. I'm like, what happened? I
Awesome.
think like my headset must have like been muted somehow. So yeah,
Oh well, that's okay. We've got
interesting.
you now, Zach. No, we just opened things up. Zach, I'm sure that people here already know who you are. I'm sure you need no introduction, but just in case I didn't catch you, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, I'm Zach from CSI Starbase. I'm probably maybe also see me on the RGB streams on Saturdays or Sundays whenever we do them. Um, but yeah, I'm around quite a bit and was definitely excited to hop on here and talk about the aftermath of this situation. I've kind of, been for the most part holding off my opinion on it for a while. So, yeah, interesting to be able to see all of this stuff for sure. And glad you guys were able to get out there and do this flyover, especially capturing some unique angles that I personally have been um, hoping for years, looking at this from the backside. So, yeah, quite a lot to talk about today for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely an unseen angle. Being able to fly just over that TFR and get photos, especially from the Mexico side, is absolutely fantastic. That obviously gave us a peek into the trench as well, which everyone will have seen was one of the first, or the first photo that we released. So do have a look at that on our Twitter if you haven't already. But we've got plenty more that we'll be putting up on stream. This one as well, I believe, this is a new one that we haven't released with a very interesting feature on the left-hand side.
Talking about the
Yeah, you
third
mentioned
building.
the common dome. I don't know if I can see it from this angle. I actually need to grab a different image really quick. Um, yeah, there are some really. I mean, I spend a lot of time like searching through these, just like looking for different components of the ship, and yeah, back here you can definitely see that common dome that you're referring to. So
There's
I
also
do think there was a lot of thoughts that this may have been the aft dome. Um, but I do think this is actually the that common dome.
Also, a little interesting detail that we
There it
can
is.
catch here. Looking at that building just at the top left of that, that's still smouldering. Still things around that are still smouldering. So this site was very dangerous for quite a long time.
This
Yeah,
was
there's
almost
quite a
20
few things
hours
smoking, and
after.
yeah, I don't know if you guys noticed this as well, but there's like things all over the site that were still on fire. Like for some reason, these cryo tubes over here were still burning, which I found very curious. I think I even like searched through more images because I was like, there's no way this is actually truly burning right now. But I looked at it from a few more angles, and you can actually still see it. Like even I think this one right here, that's not quite far enough over to see it, but just in the bottom corner right here, you can see the flames wrapping around this right here. Um, so yeah, I
Of
mean,
course,
after
the whole thing's
yeah,
just
all of this
completely
is like
blackened.
torched all the way
Oh,
down
you know
here,
what?
which
You
is
may be right there, actually. Yeah, that's a fire.
yeah. There's a few of them still burning actually. Like there's the methane pumps back here were still on fire. Um, and I think there was some stuff still smoldering off on the side. But yeah, I think we can probably talk about each of those things individually. Maybe like starting off with the trench though, since that's kind of the part that a lot of people are most interested in, and then we can kind of work our way back, I guess, to other areas.
Yeah, I guess if we work from the explosion outwards, that might be interesting.
Yeah, this is
I guess.
pretty wild. I don't think anybody was uh, obviously had this in their bingo cards for this year. I know I personally, I guess, well, I'm curious what you guys were doing like during this test because I was, you know, preparing for another live stream tomorrow, actually reviewing some other flyover images, and just everybody started freaking out like, oh, it blew up. Then just turn on the stream
Yeah,
and see that was pretty intense.
thought it was a prank at first. Always is until right now.
Dude, I was fast asleep and I woke up to a message in general with multiple pings in our Interstellar Gateway production server from TSE where it just said S36 is gone, it's exploded. It's exploded. I mean, the imagery that we
Yeah,
saw
the
straight from NSF was ridiculous.
I'm not gonna lie, I think I was probably expecting it to be a little bit worse than it is. With for one, there was a full load of liquid oxygen, and there was probably, if I had to guess, less than like 10% of methane load. And so, based on I guess what we observed and what SpaceX has said, like there was a um, COPV rupture in the nose cone of the ship, which basically unzipped the entire nose cone, and then it just proceeded to collapse on top of the methane tank, which then collapsed on top of the LOX tank, and so there was two separate explosions, and you can actually kind of tell like where the tank landed. The So obviously the most of it fell on top of the LOX tank, and then that fell over here. I'm pretty sure somewhere in this area is where all of that landed.
Zach, just for those
Yep.
in the audience who aren't really aware of COPVs or what they do for Starship, you mind telling me a bit more?
Yeah, I think there's actually some off in the distance over here that we can see.
Oh, good. We can
I
have some
think
visual
there's
analysis.
On the
one
on the
in the
shoreline, there's
water
like
right
three of them.
here. Yeah, and you got one down there. So basically, these are carbon overwrapped pressure vessels, which there are quite a few of them in the nose cone of the ship. Um, I think they have some in the aft section as well for like different purposes, but most of these are, like I said, in the nose cone. They're quite large. I was seeing somebody mention earlier online today. I think it was Boca's Brain that these are roughly about 350 pounds each. And they basically store startup gases in them. So, um, the ship has to ignite its engines multiple times during flight. So, first you have, the initial burn after stage separation. Then you have any secondary burns that happen during flight. And then, of course, the landing burn and potentially even a deorbit burn as well, too. So, you need to store the gases that you need to spin those engines, and that's what they basically store these in. So, um, Elon mentioned that the one that ruptured was a nitrogen tank. So, I'm assuming that probably has a dual purpose. Like that, we do know that they use nitrogen for the actual spin start process, and then also they have a fire suppression system uh, in the ship now, which we finally saw for the first time during Flight 9. But all of that fire suppression system is contained within those nitrogen tanks as well, too. So, um, and on that note, I was actually discussing this with Ryan Hansen Space earlier. So, I guess there was some question on whether or not these are gases being stored or liquids, and um, I think that it might actually be a combination. I think that most of them are in gaseous state, but specifically with the fire suppression system, I think that may actually be liquid phase because uh, I take that back. I don't think there's any way to load liquid nitrogen onto the ship, so I take that back. So yeah, most of them must actually be in gaseous state then for that fire suppression system, and for all of the startup as well too. But I mean, you're storing these gases at extremely high pressures, so ideally they should never rupture. They're really meant for some pretty extreme handling, um, and we have seen many times where in the past, like with SN8, SN9, 10, 11. When the ships blew up, sometimes the COPVs would rupture and you'd see them flying across the launch site, and other times you could find them in locations and they were still in good condition. I know that after Flight 9, a lot of COPVs washed up on in Mexico from the booster, and those all seem to be in pretty good condition, even though um, there was like basically an airburst of Booster 15. So yeah, they're definitely meant to withstand quite a good amount of um, rough handling. However, to have something like this explode inside of the vehicle at a really worst possible time is um, quite perplexing in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the situation's made no
Also,
better by the fact. Oh, go on, actually, TSC. Jump in.
yeah, no, just notable to mention also those COPVs that washed up from Booster 14 were actually igniter bottles, which we had not seen before. So just mildly interesting, but yeah, same construction.
I think it's also made worse by the fact that a lot of these COPVs are placed in rather close proximity to each other. There isn't much space in Starship. It's obviously it's a volume constrained engineering process, and so if one pops, the others are very likely to go as well, and then you end up having this chain reaction where fuels mix and combustion happens, and that's pretty much what happened here.
Yeah, and that
Yep.
that expansion ratio is quite high. So if you do have a rupture of one of these tanks, then it'll quickly exceed the pressure rating for that actual nose cone, which I mean, you're basically filling the entire volume of the nose cone. I think somebody estimated it like 80%. That whatever's inside of that tank could take up 80% of the actual volume of the nose cone. And without like a depressurization system, which to tell you the truth, I don't even know if any kind of vent would have kept up with the amount of volume that was being, um, dispersed into the nose cone. It basically has nowhere else to go other than out. So that it basically ripped the nose cone like a clean rip along the side of it, and ended up causing the cascading failure after that. And yeah, very 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 crazy to see that happen. Um,
I will also add
One of
that
the
we
things I
have.
was like,
I'll go on actually. Finish
go
your
ahead.
point.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like it's amazing how small the pieces of the vehicle are. There are some rather large sections, like I think this is the biggest one right here. But yeah, they're pretty spread all across the site and also over into Mexico. I'm not sure if you guys had any if angles that show the Mexican side, but yeah, the spread
I think we had
is
one.
quite impressive.
Just to kind of showing how shredded all of this got. Want to stay on that image. If you zoom in on the concrete pad, there is that kind of circular looking piece,
This
right
pad?
to the right. No, on that concrete pad, but like to the right of the test stand, there's a little kind of circular looking piece that's just laying there on the concrete. A little more
This
up. That bit right there. That is a piece of a Raptor engine on the bell. That is one of the regen manifolds. So it just kind of gives you a little bit of an idea how violent this was if it's ripping pieces off of the engines that small.
I'm surprised anything from the engines made it out here. Like I would be expecting them to be like in the bottom of the trench, but I think we did. There are multiple engines out here, right? Like I know
There
that
are.
I think somewhere around
It was further up the other
the edge of the
direction.
property. Okay.
I will just give a quick thank you to Lachlan Wall for the $100 donation and membership. Thank you very much, my friend. If you are enjoying this content, support is massively appreciated. It does allow us to keep getting views like this.
Yeah, right up there. We also have an RVAC mount next to it in the dirt.
Is that this right here?
Yeah. Yeah. There's another image that shows it a little more clearly. I don't know if you have numbers on it, but 2620, which would be
I do not have the numbers. Is it like looking at it from this side? Oh, that's what
no, from the it's looking at it from the east side, looking west.
mm, yeah, I'm not able to see the actual numbers on here. This might be one
And
that
if you
has it a little
hover over
clearer.
it, it looks like
If
it.
you hover over it, you should
Yeah,
see DSC followed by numbers.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
there
So
we go.
right there, that's one of the clear ones.
Guess I'm really good at using this app, right?
So, yeah, got remains of an RVAC, bit of engine shielding next to it, like the frames of them, and then the mount that it was formerly attached to. So that's fun.
We've had
Yeah,
someone
the
mention.
interesting thing.
Go on, actually,
Go
go on.
ahead. I was saying the interesting thing is the way that kind of I guess moving away from like the actual vehicle, like it's interesting the way that I think a lot of people were kind of shocked that there was so much fire around the site, like um, basically for the whole night. Like it continued for about 8 hours, if not longer. Actually, I would say longer than that, considering it was still burning. Um, is portions of the site were still burning when you guys did this flyover, and how many hours after did you say this was?
Approximately 20.
Yeah, that's crazy. If you guys want to, I definitely would like to get into like why some of that stuff burned for so long, specific parts of the site, um, because I think there was a
Yeah,
lot of
sure.
misunderstanding, I suppose, about like um, some of the things that were actually going on, and these images definitely make it a lot clearer, I would say. But if I look at like the tank farm, for example, if kind of want to show that whole um, area at once. So this is probably the best image for that. But yeah, I mean, first of all, when you had the ship land on top of this area right here, obviously you're severing all of these pipes, and of course the gantry itself was completely demolished. So basically, anything that was still like within this system, um, specifically on the methane side, well, actually on the liquid oxygen side too, is basically nothing controlling it anymore after this point. So it's basically free to just continue exiting these pipes. And obviously, with when you have the common dome right over here crushing even more, this is this is part of the methane return system for detanking. Um, and so you're crushing all of this stuff. There's a lot of things in the back over here, like control panels um, across the site that are all damaged. Um, Obviously, a lot of these valves are damaged. The actual the control room itself clearly damaged. So, like when you lose control of the tank farm, essentially everything is basically kind of frozen in whatever position it was when that failure happened. Which, given that they were basically still in the process of it's difficult to tell, but I think they were still in the process of loading methane or they had just finished. But a lot of these valves were stuck in that open position, which basically made it so that um, it is like an uncontrolled situation on the tank farm side. So that's why that fire lasted for so long, because it's just basically emptying these tanks. And this one right here, so you have several tanks back here that are all storing methane except for this one. This one is a nitrogen tank. Um, and this is a methane tank for the pre-pressurization system for the ship, and it also handles pressure building for the methane tanks as well too. So I think basically you have like a with the this almost near airburst of the ship and sending shrapnel through this area over here. These vaporizers uh, are basically like a bunch of small tubes that go up and down coils basically through the tower essentially. And if one of those are punctured, then it basically you have uncontrolled flow of gaseous methane coming out of these, which is what allowed this to burn essentially. And so again, and that combined with the fact
A
that you have all the
little more
valves
than
from the
punctured.
actual, yeah, the well, they seem to be in decent condition um, when the fire initially started. Like most of this damage is not necessarily from the explosion, but from the fire that happened after, because this was the brightest part of the fire was for a while coming from these. And so, like with no control over that system, you basically have like liquid methane from this tank bleeding off through the vaporizers, and they just continue to burn until basically this tank is empty. And that, honestly, in my opinion, is kind of a miracle that this tank didn't rupture, because it's so close to that the fire. Obviously, you can tell that it was getting torched for quite a long time. So, props to whoever designed these types of tanks to be able to withstand direct contact with fires for extended periods of time, because without an insulated tank you would be basically rapidly heating up the liquid contained inside of this. And unless you have safety systems installed in order to prevent an actual rupture, like they're called burst discs. So if you exceed like the pressure of the pressure that the tank is rated for, these burst discs are intended to rupture and release all of that pressure. So I'm assuming there is something like that here, but um, you know, if not, then you're basically at risk of overexpansion, I guess, of the actual tank itself, which that was one of the big things I was looking out for as I was watching that fire burn for I think I watched it for like 4 hours, just expecting to see either this tank or one of these tanks rupture, but um, got quite lucky that that didn't happen. And on the actual larger methane storage tank side, also I feel like pure luck that the fire didn't work its way back to these, because obviously, with the actual methane pumps on fire, I think these were severed somewhere in here, and then you'd had like liquid methane just leaking out of here for hours. Um, so quite quite a bad situation in that regard. You can see that those pumps are torched because this fire was probably burning a lot heavier overnight. So
If you don't mind, I'd love to quickly just dive
soothing.
in and give a thank you to some of the people who've been donating while we've been talking. Todd Burnell with $10. Thank you very much for that, my friend. Much appreciated. Rockets were also welcome to the membership program. Macazilla, great to have you here. And Ruby Foxton, thank you especially for the £10. It is a shame we're not getting a Starship launch, but at least we'll get a proper investigation and hopefully some more time for the team to analyze data until the next one.
All right.
Yeah, quite a lot of things that to replace out here. I mean, I would be surprised if I can't really see anything that I would reuse. There are some things in the water farm I would maybe reuse, but other than that, I think almost
Good that they didn't.
everything other than the trench itself.
Good that it didn't hook up
Sorry, what was
that
that?
other methane tank that they were wanting to do.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this one over here. So this tank that basically, I think what they're planning here is to replace these two vertical tanks. So like part of the thing with Massey's is that um, most of the components within Massey's, they just happen to acquire from other places. It's not like they designed all of this out exactly the way they wanted it, and then ordered all of these components. They basically pulled things from wherever they could get them. So I think this one in particular came from 39A, I believe, or this may be one of the newer ones that they actually purchased from overseas. But almost everything in the actual tank farm itself, as far as all of um, the I think this tank right here, this one right here, these LOX tanks, and all of these came from pad 39A. So basically, they're just pulling this stuff from wherever they could get it, which is why things look a bit strange in some areas. Like if you kind of like know the way these systems work, it's like, what is going on here? They basically acquired anything that they could get, and with the intention of upgrading things in the future. So this is one of those planned upgrades, is to increase the methane storage, put it in a single vessel, and probably get rid of these. So I guess now they'll have plenty of time to do that. It's I think it's going to be really interesting to see, like, if they just try and rebuild it back the way it was, or if they kind of redesign it. And TSE, I'm sure you saw that post on X before the start of the show. Somebody was asking, why are they putting all this stuff so close to the flame trench? And it's like, I mean, there's nowhere else to put it.
Yep.
Like there's
I
no
mean, you're not
there's
kind
nowhere
of.
else that would have been safer.
You're also not anticipating blowing up multiple ships as a regular occurrence. So I wouldn't really plan for that kind of contingency if you're designing something like this.
Yeah.
I think that point, along with a lot of other interesting questions we've had, might be worth getting into. We've been getting questions actually for really since the start of the stream. If we'd like to roll through some of them, first
Yeah, of
interesting
course.
question that I'd like to pose to you, to both of you, is: don't they check all the components of the ship before static fire testing? And that's from Ayush Nishal.
guess I'll take this one. For the most part, you would yes, but we don't know much about all of the policies and all of the kind of instructions that they go through for that verifying parts and for vehicle installation. It has been known for quite a while that it is, let's just say, iffy in terms of quality control and quality assurance. It's I think this is a kind of situation where it was just an extreme mishandling for some kind of part on the ship, which assumably is the COPV.
Yeah, that's. You have any thoughts about that, Mr. Zach?
Yeah, I mean, in the inside of Megabay 2, they have lots of testing stations for like pressure tests and all that stuff. Like they have lots of equipment in there now that they did not have like in the high bay, for example. So they're really able to like do pressure tests on most of the stuff, even with the Raptors. At the Raptor engine install station, or sorry, where they store all the Raptors. Um, well, we actually haven't seen this since the tent days when they were storing the Raptors inside of the tents. But they did have pressure testing stations for the Raptors, and I'm assuming the location that they're storing the Raptors in now, they still have something like that. So, yeah, everything is tested beforehand, and they did a cryo test um, several months ago for ship 36, and they also obviously performed a single engine static fire test the day before this. So um, the fact that an issue, to do a successful static fire the day before, and then have something like this happen the day after is, uh, well, curious to say the least, like how that happened. Um,
And it seems kind
yeah,
of just like a cycling thing because, I mean, pressure tanks are, of course, pretty volatile to begin with, and they have a limited lifespan. If they're damaged, you're going to go through that cycle life much quicker.
Yeah, that's kind of why this sort of testing cycling is so fantastic, because a tank that's properly built and performing as functional, extra cycles won't hurt it, but a tank that isn't, it's almost certainly going to pop. In this case, that's what happened here. That was a really good question, I think, from Ayush. Thank you for that. We may as well move on to another. We've got a question from Space Vulture here about one of the best photos I think we've gotten from this whole operation, which is there was a Raptor with its serial number still visible, and which one was that? I believe we have that.
All
picture.
right.
what was that again?
It was one of the kind of contrasty ones. Hold on,
I believe we
the
have the
number.
number. Yeah, let's find it.
1 second.
For those who
All
aren't really aware,
catalog
we've kind of got a big list
was
of the names of photos that have interesting things. Brandon, our photographer, ended up delivering 128 gigabytes worth of photos to
image
to home.
2409.
2409, there we go.
And then zoom in right, yeah, right there.
There it is.
So
There it
that's
is.
a fun one. So basically, what we're looking at here is the kind of, if you can imagine the just how the engine looks, you're looking at that silvery structure that's kind of sticking out the top. That's the main fuel valve. You've got one manifold at the top and then another kind of ring at the bottom. So this is Raptor 524, which was an RVAC on Ship 36. And there's not a lot left of it. It broke, it just looks like it broke below the throat and then broke below where the bell extension begins. And that is all that at least we've been able to identify of it.
Looks a bit crumpled, doesn't it, really?
Just a little bit.
Just a little
Fine.
bit, yeah. Probably refly it.
I don't get how these things left the stand though, because there's so many
Great question.
components that are down inside of the trench. Like you would think that it would have just shot down through the bottom and ended up inside of the trench. Like I'm sure that I would have expected all of the Raptors to be down here.
No, it's a good question, actually.
There's
It's a
also
question that
there's
Fighting
another
Falcon posed in our chat, which is why the engine's far from what the ship was. I, frankly, am not sure. It's a hell of a freak incident.
I mean, I think it kind of like just kind of looking at some of the footage that we had seen of the anomaly itself, when those tanks, like when the secondary explosion happened, when those tanks hit the ground, I think that's what probably sent a couple of them flying, because there's been at least three, maybe potentially four engines. There's kind of a really crumpled one that we're not sure of that's over. Actually, I forgot where it was. Hold on. But there's three. So we saw the one that was over on the dirt wall. There's another one that's over by the old booster cryo stand, the block, I guess, 1 and 2 booster cryo stand. That's also just kind of sitting there if you want to go check that out. And then there is this nozzle fragment. The rest are inside the trench.
over in this area.
So yeah, it is right. If you look below the man lift, like just move the image down further.
Oh, this one.
There it is,
Okay.
right there in the, yeah. So there's another power head right there.
That's crazy.
Now, seriously, would I be right in saying this is the first time we've seen a lot of these components from this kind of angle?
Some parts, maybe not the engines, but it does certainly feel a lot like the suborbital program. Looking at the crumpled Raptors, you know,
It
we
is a
haven't had in a
flashback, isn't it,
while.
really? Yeah, we haven't seen a crumpled ship in a while either. In a long while.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we definitely saw for the first time was that common dome for the ship, which a lot of people had never seen before. Well, actually, I don't think anybody really has ever seen it before. Um, that was definitely some details in this that kind of have been guessing on for quite a while. So now being able to actually see some of this was quite interesting, and the way that it separated everything is interesting because you have basically, and this is the pipe that goes from the header tank. So it comes from the header tank through the common dome, and then you have the I believe this is one of the, I can't tell if that's the RVAC or the central.
That's
I
the
think that's
center, yeah.
yeah, the center, and then way over on the other side over here. And there's so many images, it's hard to just find exactly what I'm looking for right away. But over here, um, these would
I like
be,
the
I
one on the
think, the pipes
bottom.
that go.
You can see some of the vacuum
Uh,
jacketing around the one on the bottom. Still kind of
yeah,
mounted.
I thought these might be the RVAC ones, but
Yeah, these are just the
yeah,
regular
this might
header
be all
tank
three of them.
downcomers,
I'm
I
not sure.
believe.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Especially seeing just the way that some of these have some curves in them. Um, I didn't know they did vacuum jacketed stuff in the nose cone, but I guess that would make sense.
Was that not
Then
like
you
one of the
have
main
this one
things that
right
they
here is from
listed
the
for
app section.
Block 2 ships? I believe that was like one of the main things they said for the downcomers from the header tank that would be vacuum jacketed. I forgot if that was for
Yeah, I guess
33
they
or
must have done
34.
everything.
I will quickly dive in just to bring it back to the audience. We've had some gifted memberships from Space Studio and a donation. Thank you very much for all that. Support does make these things possible, of course. And again, going back to the audience, we've had a bunch of interesting questions. One in particular, this is pretty impossible to answer. So this is purely speculative, purely vibe space. But Zach, TSE, what kind of cost do you think could come out of the damage to Massey's here? Do you think this is game over, or do you think this is really just a nothing burger? Or is it somewhere in between?
Oh,
You want to take this one?
it's certainly not nothing. But I think they're in luck in some ways. I think there are several things that are going to be, some things will be easier to replace than others. For example, um, this test stand, a little bit difficult to replace most of that stuff because, um, it really depends on the condition of the actual superstructure itself, which seems honestly like it might be fine. Like there's a lot of auxiliary stuff like the like the access way, like on the edge right here. Um, that's completely gone, and it seems like it ripped off a lot of the components on the top. The clamps obviously probably need to be replaced. I do wonder if
There's
If you
one of
strip
them that's
most of
like
these
sitting.
components off, if this would where?
There's one of them sitting on the concrete. I forgot where exactly it was, but it was like pretty nearby. One of the clamps.
I'm guessing it would have to have gone in this direction.
I think so. Hold on.
That debris field is really interesting from this angle, actually. Those little white spots, are those possibly related to the heat tiles being spread everywhere?
Oh yeah, that's
These
its own thing.
over here, like
Yeah, kind of to the side of the debris field. We see lots of little white spots scattered around.
yeah, I was wondering where the heat tiles went, because at every rud that we've had with the ship where tiles have ended up washing up on shore, some of them seem to be in like pretty good condition. Here, I don't know if it's just because they're so small from this angle, but I didn't find a complete tile anywhere.
There's some on the forward flap, or yeah, that flap that right
Yeah,
there.
like
But
there.
that's like it. There's nothing
What a
else.
beautiful shot
Okay.
that is, by the way.
The
Getting to see
the
that.
clamp that
Yeah, for
detached is
sure.
over by that flare stack. It's like right next to it.
Oh, way over there. Wow.
Yeah,
Now, speaking
the
of the
not
large-scale
the
damage,
not the big
So
one, like the
opposite direction.
small one that's like next to the stand.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
speaking of the large-scale
Um.
damage, we have had an interesting little question from Johan here, which is, can't they have a lot of
Uh,
this equipment underground to prevent things breaking down?
right up there on the.
mm, Sorry, give me 1 second. Are you saying is it above here?
It's on the. It's just hold on. Right, just zoom straight into the center, pretty much, and then go to your right. It's that
This?
metal object sitting. Yeah, that right there. It's not really easy to see from that view, but it's very visible from the side.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier to see right there. That's crazy. And yeah, there are definitely, you can tell some of them that ripped free from here. I mean, yeah, like I said, when you look at it from this angle, it doesn't actually seem that bad on the actual superstructure of this thing. Like some of this looks like it'll buff out. This is a very heavy duty structure. Um eh, and yeah, I think this thing will be fine. Like that's just my initial thoughts on it. And that's a good thing because this is something that is like much more difficult to replace. There are other things that are easier to replace. And again, another thing that I mentioned was more difficult. This control room over here, probably a super long lead time item, if unless they just happen to have one at like McGregor or something laying around. Um, and again, some of these other components could easily be pulled from McGregor. Some of them can even be pulled from the launch site. Pad B, the tank farm extension, they should be able to pull some of the pumps from there if they need to. Depending on if these heat exchangers are damaged, they um, probably can pull some of those from Pad 39A for a second time. And also, assuming they may have some already set aside for Pad 37, they can pull some of that stuff as well too. The water tanks right here, I I'm on the fence about whether or not these are truly damaged because you can see water leaking down here. So there's something leaking. I did see from another angle that one of the let's see if I can find it. Might be able to see it from this side. So this pipe right here is actually like part of the sump pump for the flame trench. So like they pump out all the water that's left out at the bottom of the trench back into the tanks. And from some angles, you can actually see that this pipe was ruptured. I might be able to see it from this one. Yeah. So basically, it sends water back to all these tanks, and it's actually ruptured down here. Um, I did see in some other photos from Y that it was actually actively spraying out from there. So it must have recently stopped as you guys got up here. but there are valves down here that like contain the water within the tank, and I'm assuming one of those valves was compromised on this tank, and I do believe most of that tank has drained itself at this point. You can see that it drained back this direction, and then into the actual trench. It's all down there. It's kind of disgusting.
I mean, I guess we're here. Do we want to talk about the trench?
Yeah, for sure. Fun stuff down
All
there.
right.
I'll let you start with this one.
We
Oh
have
wow,
had some questions
now I'm
about
Well,
noticing
water.
how deep. So this is very deep. This is deep
yeah,
down here,
it's
and
full
the
of
water
water.
is all the way up. Yeah,
Yeah,
and there
people
was
are
no
wondering
water
how
during the
damaged
test.
this
So
actually is.
I
This is actually
mean,
one thing I wasn't sure about. If you look at the center deflector, you can see some pipes that kind of look bent. I was not sure if that was like a part of the design. Yeah, those two in the middle. It's kind of like bent inwards. I wasn't sure if that
I
was.
think that's part of the design for those.
Gotcha.
But you do have, what is this, thrust puck? The thrust puck right here.
Yeah, there's an entire intact engine if you want to move down a little bit. It's barely visible. We're looking at it from the bottom. Yeah, right there. You can see
This.
kind of the methane pump. Yeah, you can see kind of methane pump. The whole bell's still kind of there. The rest
Oh,
of
right
it's
here.
buried in other debris. Yeah, so there's a whole engine down there at least.
I'm surprised all of them aren't down here.
There's what looks like a combustion chamber of one a little bit to the right of it, but I wasn't sure. The kind of bright object to the right, not to the top.
Was that other angle better for this?
Either one works. It reflects sunlight pretty well. Yeah, that bright one right there. A little bit up.
Up here?
Yeah, that bit right there. I'm pretty sure that's part of a combustion chamber.
Yeah, this is crazy. um, I wonder if this is another engine right here, because like, I feel like there's
It's
two of them
buried in
down
water.
here.
Could
Yeah,
be.
it's hard to see with all that water. Wow.
Oh, I just
Try a little
realized you
bit
can see
different angle.
the bottom of the center, like the sump at the bottom of the center downcomer. It's right in between the whole engine and that engine mount. That's like really bright on the top. It's that kind of like good. So you see where the mount is, the engine mount that's like really bright
This
sticking out. Yeah, that. Look down and to the left of it.
over here.
Yeah, that little
Oh,
thing
yeah,
right
this
there.
is the
I'm
bottom
pretty
of
sure
the
is the
downcomer.
yeah.
It goes basically inside of here.
Yep.
Wow.
If you'll pardon the pun, it's pretty cool
Quite
to
the
see
cleanup job.
Starship's assembly exploded like this.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I do feel really bad for the ship team. Like um probably just this whole year so far for them has like just been a nightmare. And it really sucks because there's just like so much effort that they put into all this stuff. Like, they work schedules that most people just simply couldn't handle. Um, I uh, I feel their pain, as somebody who works 12-hour shifts for 14 days straight. Like, I think I'm close to like what they do, but I think that they may actually exceed the amount of hours that I work in a year because, I'm 14 days on, 14 days off, so I'm pretty sure they exceed that because I only really technically work half the year. But to put that much time, sweat, and just general care into a lot of this stuff, and then to have it just explode on the pad like that is um, definitely difficult to stomach on their side, I would say. And because you're just like, what, all of this effort that I'm putting in, and it just literally explodes. Um, but on the flip side, moments like these are times for other teams to shine, which is like the GSE team in particular. Um, I'm sure they're, I hate to put it this way, but probably excited because things like this don't happen often. You know what I mean? Like where you're called on for like emergency, services. I think the last time was it Slick 40 the last time they had a major pad event, um,
Yeah,
and SN4, um, things like that, where you know you have a somewhat of a routine that you're expecting, and then they call on you, and you just have to just drop everything, and you're like, okay, well now it's time to go shopping across all of our facilities and see what I can get. Um, to rebuild this as quickly as possible, because there's a lot of things that are present other elsewhere that is not being used currently. Like I said, pad 39A is a great example of that. You can kind of afford to strip stuff from pad 39A and reorder those parts, in order to get this back up and running as quickly as possible. In my opinion, the biggest question mark though is this flame bucket, which, assuming there's no major dents in it, I would hope most of it's probably good to go. Um, and
yeah.
let's say you have just like a few damaged pipes, you may potentially be able to replace sections of pipe. I know it's a little bit difficult because these are um,
It's
they're
full of
welded to
water.
each other, like yeah, full of water, but it's all there. Each pipe is like welded to the one next to it, so you kind of got to like cut in between them to pull a section of pipe out and then add a new section in. So it is possible that they could just make repairs to this instead of having to completely rebuild another one, but that's totally dependent on the top of the ramp, which uh, we're kind of seeing right here. I think there's a better
Yeah,
angle
from
of
what we
that.
could see, the top portion looked fine. I'm more concerned about the portion where it starts curving, because that's where everything would impact the first time.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Is there an image that's a little further out that might be able to? I don't think so.
yeah, I don't
You
think
can
it
see
would.
more of the bottom of it. No.
The main thing here would
Yeah, but
be, go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, just
Okay.
continuing on the thought, like they kind of live for moments like this in some ways, that GSE team, um, you know, eh, being able to come up with a plan and essentially come in and save the day, is kind of things that they strive for, or not strive for, but they live for, in my opinion. Like, emergency services is a crazy part of a job. Like, I've had a job where, I do things like that. Um, it- and solving problems is always really fun. But I guess for everybody else, this does represent a huge setback. And one of the biggest questions that they have to answer before they even start this is like, do you rebuild this for two ships? Because you have ship 37 and ship 38, which are the last V2 ships. And after that, with the V3 ships, a lot of things change. The QD changes, the internal systems of the ship change, and like anytime something inside the ship changes, generally it's going to require changes to the actual oops to all the GSE. So like, do you rebuild it for two ships, or do you just move on from the V2 ships and rebuild this for the V3? Because you know that's something that were planning to have to do anyways. They were already starting that with the booster cryo station, for example. They stripped out all of the. This is where the booster QD was, and you can see that. I think this was within the last week. They stripped out that um, the old booster QD, and they're preparing to add the new booster QDs. There's two of them. This is the new booster cryo test stand. So they are already in the process of doing some transitioning, especially on the booster side, and they're going to have to soon do the same thing for the ship. So now, I guess that question is like, do you rebuild all of this stuff for V2, or do you rebuild it for V3? So, it's a potentially a big change, a lot of things that are affected by um, which vehicle you're building for. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Personally, in terms of like on that regard, I think they might just like if they don't scrap the vehicles, I think they'll just build it out for the version 3 ships. 'Cause I don't think they would have much incentive to waiting who knows how many months, like I don't know, 6, 5-6 months to rebuild all of this if they choose to do that, just for 2 ships, which are dubious in terms of kind of their likelihood of succeeding on their missions. So it's really just all up in the air right now.
Give me 1 second. I may have lost my audio again here.
Uh-oh.
There we go. I can hear you guys.
Perfect. Hello.
All right.
Had a bunch of...
Yeah, I guess just kind of on that note, which again, just ship 37, ship 38 will have to see what their fate is. That's going to determine all of this. I think if they do choose to fly them, they will be some amount of success compared to the last ones because they actually have some sort of upgrade plan that's not just a band-aid. We'll see. But like, yeah, I don't think it's worth it to rebuild all of this infrastructure just for the 2 ships.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's what I would do is move on. And that's kind of sucks because moving on is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. When I say that, it sounds like I'm talking from an emotional standpoint, but from a hardware standpoint, they haven't started testing anything for V3 ships. And technically, they're only just now beginning to do the same for boosters. And so I guess that's another thing to consider is that this decision not only affects ships, but it affects boosters. So booster 16, 17, and I'm missing one.
15.
15.
15's still around, yep.
Yeah. So it affects all of those boosters. And if you move on to V3 ships, then you have to move on to V3 boosters. That would also mean that we've seen the last launch from Pad A. A lot of decisions to make when you decide, literally just based on how you want to rebuild this affects everything else in the program, essentially. And on that note, you would be basically trying to move on to V3 boosters at a time where you've only just started to test V3 booster hardware. So booster 18 is being assembled right now, but they have not I think the aft section of that booster is basically sitting inside of the Star Factory currently, waiting for this test to be concluded. So they need to. You don't want to finish putting that booster together and then figure out that you need something to change in that design by when you do this test. And as far as we can tell, they have not performed. They've done an initial cryo test on this, but not tested a structural verification test on this yet. So they're finally going to finally do that test of an aft section, essentially, for a booster. They still need to test the forward section. So that integrated hot stage ring, that's going to be another big one that should be coming up soon. And then assuming there are any major changes to the V3 ship, they'll also need to do some sort of structural qualification testing for that. So moving on is not necessarily easy because, not only are you rebuilding the site, there's a possibility that you can't even perform this test right now, depending on if there's any systems in here that are damaged that can't be used in the process of fixing everything else. So, a lot of decision making there.
I think with such a wide subject area, a lot of people are going to have questions about that. And so if you do have questions about how you think this is going to impact development, please do post them in the chat. I do want to just circle back to a couple of questions we've been posed. There is one really interesting question, which a few people have asked now, which is why doesn't SpaceX have some kind of massive fire suppression system around Messies in events like this?
Probably wouldn't have made a difference. They do have one, but it's I think it's on the actual gantry.
Which no longer
and you
exists.
See what happened to the gantry. Yeah. I saw somebody ask like why not just open up the deluge system? That wouldn't have helped because it's only in the trench. It doesn't really. It kind of sprays just over the top of this right here, but barely. So that wouldn't have helped anything. Fire suppression system is not going to help you when you have a vehicle landing on top of your propellant distribution system. So yeah, things may have been less burned. Maybe these vaporizers wouldn't be melted, but they would be just permanently damaged. So fire suppression system is not gonna help in that situation. Um,
Yeah, and I think
and if you
Jesse's
have an active gas leak, then that fire suppression system not necessarily going to help with that either. Especially if there's some areas where you have just a methane leak, and there's other areas where you have methane and liquid oxygen leaking. So yeah, you're not really going to do anything in that situation with a fire suppression system.
Yeah, I think Jesse in the chat raises a good point here, where he says there comes a point where your suppression system would have to be larger than your facility, and that is kind of the case here. You've got so many little sources of propellants and oxidizer that can just leak in so many different pipe networks, and realistically, you can't suppress all of it. The best you can do is try and make it inert, but even then, you've got massive volumes of gas and liquid that you have to get rid of, and you can't do it. It's not possible. The safest thing to do is often just to move it into a safer tank and just wait for things to fizzle out.
Yep.
Yeah. And in case anybody's wondering, this tank right here is used for fire suppression. The rest of these are deluge. This one's the fire suppression tank, and you can see that not only
yeah, it's kind of off
not only
its
did
pedestal.
they lose the gantry, yeah. Where's a better angle of that?
Yeah.
Oh wow, it shifted off the pedestal.
Yeah, yeah.
So we need a fire
And
suppression
the type-
system for the fire suppression system, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
How deep can we go?
Oh look, now you can see it from this angle. You can see that water spraying out.
Oh wow,
Incredible.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, so that's basically this tank emptying itself currently. Actually, I'm on the fence about that. This is either the tank emptying itself based on how much water is in the trench. That's probably what's happening. There's also a possibility that they may still have had power to the sump pump in the trench, and it's trying to pump out the water from the trench currently. So I'm a little on the fence about what is actually happening here, but I think this is coming directly from the tank. So basically, like I was saying a few minutes ago, that the tank is emptying itself, actively emptying itself into the bottom of the trench currently. You can see it's basically flowing underneath, and yeah, got to work on property grading, I guess, because you probably don't want the slope to end up in the trench, even like after rainstorms. You know what I mean? Like you don't want all of your drainage to end up in that trench. I'm honestly kind of surprised that that's how it's graded, but a little bit too late to do anything about that, I would say.
A little bit, yeah.
We've had always add more now, so
yeah. Well, I think
I just gotta say, I'm really glad you guys got these angles. Like I can't explain to you how long I've been staring at pictures of Massey's over the last few months. Like I did mention this on Twitter the other day, but I've been working on a series of episodes for months now. It started off with just talking about the difference in the Pad B design, and then I was like, okay, well, if I do that, I need to also talk about the Massey's flame trench. So I started talking about the Massey's flame trench, and then I was like, oh, well, I should probably explain like how all of this is constructed. And then I realized that a lot of people probably want to know just in general about Massey's, because I have been asked on past episodes like if I would do something specifically on Massey's. So that turned into like 4 episodes where I was like trying to explain everything at Massey's and like looking through all these images to figure out how each system works, and was really hoping this entire time to be able to see things from behind. And now we can finally see some of that stuff, even though a lot of it is in a destroyed state. These definitely are super helpful in figuring out how some of the things that I wasn't able to see work, like underneath this tank in particular. So
yeah, we're very glad
you guys were able to capture these angles.
Oh, of course, that is. I'm going to have to segue here, as I always do. That is only made possible by the support that our awesome supporters give us. I mean, organising this kind of thing. Here's a little tidbit for you. Actually, this was organised in less than 14 hours. Immediately went straight from the mind of Emlyn, our stream manager, straight into, I suppose, the camera of Brandon. So really, really pleased with how that turned out. And yeah, that's made possible by you guys. So thank you, all 800-ish of you, for sitting in and listening to us talk about this. It's a pleasure having you. We've also had a donation of £2 from Lewis Nax, saying great photos. Thank you very much. We do appreciate it. And a bunch of gifted memberships from Space Udua and DJ Esmeralda. Thank you guys for that. Space Udua does also post a question with a super chat, and this is, you're going to hate me for this, it's another one of those open-ended questions, but to both of you, how long do you think it's going to take until we get to Flight 10?
Ah, boy.
Yeah.
Personally,
yeah.
I don't think we're gonna see this until next year.
Ooh.
I think they're gonna have to tear out almost everything and replace it. They probably want to do that as well because like just doing a second generation of like all the GSE and stuff is generally the better option in terms of like just reliability. If you want your better system, you have the first one, you mess with it, see what works, see what doesn't, and then build the new one. That's what they're doing with the orbital tank farm, you know? So, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't want to do that here.
Zach, what do you think?
Well, based on, again, from having gone through a year and a half worth of images for Massey's, this part of the farm was actually built rather quickly. But you also have to consider the demo part of this, So like not only are you rebuilding stuff, like there's 3 phases of this. There's cleanup, there's the actual inspection. So like for example, with these water tanks, initially I was like, well, first of all, you got to empty them, but they're emptying themselves right now, so that's not really a big deal. You would want to be able to actually possibly go inside and inspect the tank walls to make sure they're not compromised. If they are, then you like add that to the item of list that need to be replaced. Same thing with like all of the this is not the greatest area to talk about this because everything down here is compromised, but some of the things back inside of the actual methane farm could still be functional, like a lot of these valves and the heat exchanger, potentially these high pressure cylinders, some of the vaporizers that aren't melted. Like you really got to just like take inventory of everything that is damaged, which in itself takes a while to accomplish all that stuff. And then after that, you have to start figuring out you need inventory of other locations. So the static fire test stands in McGregor, pad 39A, pad 37, if they have equipment for that already. Pad B, you have to figure out what you have, what you're willing to like cannibalize essentially, and then also start actually reconstructing it. So like all of that is a big process, and anything that you can't just pull from another location, then you have to order it. So not a lot of these things are not just like sitting on a shelf waiting to be purchased. Like most of the stuff is made to order. I will say that they have done a good job in the past of buying used items. Like these tanks when they first arrived were crazy. Like most people don't really remember what these looked like. I think I can show an image of them really quick. Let's see if I can pull that up. But yeah, those tanks looked wild when they arrived. Like I was surprised that they even used them because of how bad they looked. So yeah, as I'm looking for that, I'll try and keep talking. But yeah, there's so many factors that go into this that it's really difficult to predict how long it's going to take.
Yeah, I think it's a question. It's a question we can't answer. I don't really. I'll be honest. I don't know enough about Starship or the GSE equipment to say for sure, but I do hope it's not next year. But obviously, this has shifted the timeline. We're now in a funny situation where we have more more boosters than we do ships, and so I guess that, as some people, such as Mr. I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, Mr. Bleisefspan-Spitzer, in the chat, who asks,
Ooh,
why
that is-
don't we put a version 3 ship on the current generation of booster?
Oh, it just can't lift it. Like, it'd just be too heavy, I imagine, to perform at least a trajectory where the booster can come back.
Yeah. There's a lot of factors that go into that. I'll just show this really quick. These are what those tanks looked like when they showed up. So yeah, they like the point I was making is that they do like to buy used items. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of things that are different in that V3 ship. Number one, we don't know how it's going to integrate with the hot stage ring. And so the hot stage ring on the V3 boosters may be not necessarily able to, we don't know if the clamps are on the booster side or if they're on the ship side. If they move the clamps to the ship side, then V3 ships simply will never be able to mate with a V3 booster. So V3
V1.
ships also V2. Wait, are we talking about boosters or ships?
I mean, you were talking about ships, but then you said V3 can't mate with V3, which is not, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine on
V3
the
ships
V3
can't
ships.
mate with V2 boosters.
Yes. I imagine on the V3 ships, the active side is on the ship now, just because, I mean, if you look at the hot stage, there's nowhere else to put actuators or anything on there, so it's got to be the passive.
Yeah.
At least.
And TSE, just for those who don't know, could you elaborate a bit on what an active side is?
I mean, so the active side is the part that's actually got the latch that opens and closes to hold it together. And it's got this little actuator on it that just, it's like a tiny piston, but I actually forget if it's electrical now, because it used to be hydraulic, but they moved to electric on that one, right?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I have something I can show for this.
Look at that, real-time graphics. We're advanced here. That'll be the very best.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I have so many animations that it's a little difficult to find things sometimes.
Now I can imagine. Take your time. In the meanwhile, we can take another quick question, if you like. We have got some little bits of chatter about whether or not SpaceX really needs to wait until Massey's is done in order to begin further flights.
That's the fun part, because
that is the fun part.
There's a chance they just don't. I think, like, you don't. I mean, you need to static fire the ship, but knowing SpaceX, like, there is a chance where they do independent testing at McGregor of just the engines, and then do their some. I imagine they will make up some special test. If they go this route, they'll make up some special test for the ship to test all of the fluid flow. Not sure, but they might not have to wait for Massey's to fly again. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what Corey was asking about in the chat, which is if they could use Pad A for testing, build Massey's for Gen 3, and then switch to Pad B.
Yeah, and this is that latch right here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an awesome.
Imagine moving that. Imagine moving that.
Yeah, this is from Chameleon Circuit. Yeah, this is actually on the top of the booster, and then there's another one on the hot stage ring itself. But this component, like in the presentation from Elon, we didn't see this stuff on the actual integrated hot stage ring, which there could be a reason for that. It could just be because that's not the actual production version, and that's just a test version that needs to be coming to Massey's to get tested soon. So it may not actually have this hardware on there. But there's also more likely that this has been moved to the ship instead of the booster. So you can't.
That's what I'm thinking too, yeah.
Oh man, I was just going to make an analogy, but I don't think it's safe for, yeah. Anyways,
wow.
Moving on.
Okay, let's just move on swiftly. Move on swiftly with great pace. Shout out Chameleon Circuit for that animation, by the way. Thank you very much for that. Looks fantastic. We have
and while you answer this next question, I'm going to step away for just 1 second to let my dog back in because it's super hot outside.
Yeah, fair play, fair
Yeah, sure.
play. Dog takes priority, I believe. In the meanwhile, let's look for some other interesting questions. Here's one from Gabriel. This will be simple to answer, hopefully. Could they skip the static fire for Ship 37? TSE, do you think they'd do that?
I think it's too early to make that kind of decision. You gotta kind of, I mean, first of all, we gotta figure out what's kind of going on with the Massies here. You gotta figure out what you can use and what you can't. If you can actually get Massies ready for that. Alternatively, there is a chance they just go flight without static firing. They either make up their own test for that, or they just don't, period. So, again, I think it's too early to make any such decision, but I think it is kind of something to discuss a little further, I guess. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I think it is quite a risk-averse decision, but I mean, we know that SpaceX tolerates a bit of risk here and there, so
it is, of course, notable to mention that this failure, was not actually related to the fact that it was a static fire test, because this was like not really late into the countdown, but it wasn't the result of any unique testing like condition for a static fire. So it could be fine without it. We just don't know right now. So
yeah, I think it's very possible. I mean, there's definitely some people worrying about whether the FAA would even accept a launch license for a flight that's not had a static fire. But would you say that's more of SpaceX's responsibility?
That I think is the main concern with not doing it, because I think they might find that acceptable to not do a static fire. I don't think the FAA would. So there might be some kind of negotiations that would have to happen there.
It's very possible. And, we've just mentioned that SpaceX takes on a little bit of risk here and there. And luckily for all of you, we've put that live on display. You go take a look at our shop.igw.llc. Look at that segue, man. Look at that segue. This is the lovely little poster that TSE put together in entirely the wrong application for the job, but it looks fairly good.
Come on, it works.
You shouldn't have used it, but regardless, it's there. It looks pretty good. It's a funny little poster. Hang it on your bedroom wall. Hang it in your living room. Hang it in your garage. For all I care. But go take a look. We've got a discount code, Methane Check, for 10% off. That's on right now, and it's shop.igw.llc. Take a look in the chat. There's your link. Go have a look-see, because this is actually quite nice. Got some other little prints as well, which I believe our lovely stream manager could put on show for you. Some fantastic little bits. So, for instance, Ship 33 here. Really lovely images here taken by Brandon and Kay. Fantastic collection of many ships, actually, from all across previous SpaceX testing history. If we can try and roll through these images. So it's some good stuff here. We've got some very, very talented photographers, and this is the stuff that makes us that lets us do what we love to do, and also makes your bedroom hopefully a little bit more lively and exciting. So do go take a look. It's shop.igw.llc. Perigi, you'll be very happy that I've directed you all there. We've also got some fun patches, other things that you might enjoy. That was pretty smooth, wasn't it, TSE? That was all right.
It was.
That was pretty good. Shall we talk about rockets, gentlemen?
All right.
I was going to get to that in a second here. Yeah. Fun one.
Now we talk about rockets.
So what
are we looking at?
That is the hull of the payload bay kind of there. You can see the lifting point and the door and the hatch up there. It's upside down. So that's fun. Yeah, that was just real fun to see.
Over here, I believe, is the actual door is over here as well.
They're on opposite sides of the test site, so...
That's pretty telling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Somehow the door made its way over here.
You want to? There's another shot somewhere. Let me find it. It is looking kind of northeast, but it's at the same spot where that payload hull section is. You can find the top of the nose cone just kind of resting against it. Let me find the image again. It was image.
While you look for that, I think it's really interesting how these images highlight just how thin the Starship skin actually is. We know that it's only a few millimeters thick, but To actually see that is ridiculous. I mean, it folds like tissue paper.
Image 1827.
Yeah, most of the strength of the ship comes from being pressurized for sure.
So yeah,
Wow.
right there. If you zoom in, you can see the top of the nose cone resting against that payload section. So you can see that line of tiles, and you can see where that vent was, or
Is
in the
this the nose
hole
cone?
underneath it. Yeah, and you can see where the top of the tiles are, and then that vent that's kind of on top of it, where that hole now is.
This.
Yeah, right there. So you know that vent that's like kind of on the front.
Yeah.
That's where that is.
Wow. It's really amazing how like parts from the same side of the vehicle ended up in different locations, like or the same portion of the vehicle. You know what I mean? Like, how do you have engines near the nose cone?
It's a great
Oh
question.
wow, you can see where this actually landed on the concrete right here, and then rolled over
Yeah.
into this.
And is that
Oh, that's a
little
funny one.
hexagonal thing the
Look,
camera?
yeah, that little on the edge of where the dirt is, that little black rectangle is the one of the cameras on the, yeah, right there. It's one of the cameras
What
on the
an
nose cone.
awesome catch. This was really quite
Speaking
a...
of cameras,
Oh, go on,
it would have been
segue,
cool
say.
to see this camera
Oh,
down
and
here during
I
the
don't think
event.
that camera exists anymore, man.
Well, they probably have live feed from it during that.
I suspect that live feed's going to be very, very locked down for a very long time, unfortunately.
Oh, they'll never show that. No.
Yeah.
Uh,
Good lord.
Oh wow. So these are the stairs from the test stand, I think.
yep.
You mentioned how
And
there
the
were engines flying in
false
completely different...
floor, like you know, the dance floor is also kind of crushed.
Oh
by
yes, you can see that.
Yeah.
No, I still don't understand the physics of this. You mentioned that there were engines tossed in completely different directions, and what a weird explosion. I mean, the way that Starship unzipped and then tossed engines kind of upwards as well. It's almost
A
mystical.
lot of it seemed to kind of go towards the west. I mean, even if you look in the bushes there's like a lot of large pieces. So I think that's where a lot of the explosion was directed to, which makes sense if the tank fell on the east side. So.
I don't think those trees are going to be doing so well, you know.
Luckily, they've been getting a lot of
Oh
rain
yeah,
down
no,
there. That kind of saved them.
the vegetation on the west side, like the dirt that we were just looking at, where the nose cone and stuff was, all in the water, that just the oxbow, like yeah, all of that is dead. That was not dead 2 days ago. So
Yeah, it could have been
that's
worse.
great.
If this
Could've
was
been
like
worse.
midsummer, I think that would have been a lot worse. But and it even rained down there today, I think. So like they've been getting rain quite frequently.
I do hope the river doesn't get too impacted by having lots of little Starship bits strewn throughout.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's a lot of things down here. Oh, there's another COPV.
Oh, there's one. Hello.
Yeah. Oh, you want to show
There's
the one of
probably
the
lots of components
hull
in
section?
here.
You want to show the picture of the hull section on the Mexican side?
I'm not sure if I have that. Would
was
it be in one of these
somewhere.
angles?
Hold on. It would be. Hold on, give me 2 seconds. It was its own separate image. It was 2238. Yeah, right there. Yeah, so that's a part of the methane tank, I believe, that was on the Mexican side. So it made it all the way across the Rio Grande.
Yeah, there's the ship QD is in here somewhere in the river.
Oh.
I mean, this river doesn't seem that deep. I wonder how difficult it would be to do some diving down there and try to recover some things.
I was just about to say, I wonder if SpaceX is going to try and dredge it at some point. I'm sure there's a bunch of interesting things down there.
Only 4 out of the 6 Raptors are, counted here.
Accounted
Very
for.
well could be.
Wow.
I've Got someone, Briscoe Crane, in the chat saying they want to go magnet fishing through there. I suspect SpaceX might want to have a few stern words with you, I'm afraid.
Eh.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
I
I
wouldn't
bet they're
recommend that.
watching that entire stretch.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that someone went through with a
People like
boat, which
us.
was rather bold. Very bold, to be honest.
Especially while it was still on fire. Like, not even
Yeah, we will
smoldering, like it was
say,
just actively on fire. That was
we'll
really
put out
funny.
our usual disclaimer. Don't enter any areas where you could be prosecuted for trespassing. Don't do anything silly. Stay away from dangerous things, please, for the sake of media, for the sake of SpaceX. This stuff is
Unless you get permission.
hazardous. Unless you get permission, in which case go ahead. But if you haven't reached out to SpaceX Legal, probably steer clear for a little while, because a lot of this does look harmless, but there is lots out there that hasn't been documented.
Yeah, right there. I believe that was a piece
This
of
is the
nose cone,
aft
and
section?
then next to the methane. Oh, it's the aft section?
I think so.
That was a
This
piece
looks
of
like the
nose
skirt,
cone.
the inside of the skirt. Like I think this is like in part of the
Oh yeah,
bracing for the
totally.
RVAC.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Huh.
like the
Oh yeah,
dome,
like
I
I mean, there's like
believe
the
the
lip.
aft dome, I think actually is supposed to be like right here. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. That makes sense. And so then is that the yeah, you can see like the floor. There's just that lip there. That would be where the floor goes in.
Yeah, that's the false ceiling.
Yep.
Nice.
This is completely an exploded view, isn't it? Guys, if you do
Yeah, I
have any
mean,
questions about what you're seeing, please do post them in the chat. I know there's an awful lot of debris all over the place, but we have some pretty knowledgeable people here who can try and explain things. A lot of
Yeah,
people
there's
commenting how there's alligators in here.
probably
I
is.
don't think I've ever heard anybody mention an alligator down here.
Only
And
one
a
way
lot
to
of those
find
in
out, I
Florida,
guess.
so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing that I don't think we have an angle of, but this side of this building was ripped off as well too.
Oh, wow.
Actually, you
Yeah,
can see a lot of the wall panels down there.
as part of the flight, we were both, of course, doing these photos, but we're running footage on FX6. We do not have that footage just yet because Brandon is still flying back home, but we should have footage of that wall having been blasted off whenever we end up releasing that. So we'll see. But yeah,
Just got on a $5 donation from Drunar. Thank you very much for that. He, he jokingly says, call in HOS Ridgewind. That's a name we know all too well.
no.
Oh lord, we'll leave that can of beans closed. We've got quite a big bit of destruction here. It says the tent. Tell us more about this, gentleman.
Yeah, this is a
I don't know
storage
much
tent
about
where
that.
they just store a lot of parts in here, like pipes and whatnot, like things that they're either planning to use or decided they don't need anymore. Just random parts that are stored in here because they've been building, obviously these this test stand over here, that's just out of view. So a lot of that stuff gets stored in here, and same thing with all of these shipping containers. So it's weird because I'm trying to figure out what came through here because it seems like it's not just like it clearly burnt down, obviously, but it seems like something actually flew through it because some of the actual
Yeah,
structure seems
totally.
collapsed. But I can't tell if it's actually I think the structure might be intact. It's just these things inside of it
Yeah,
melted.
just the racks
probably,
inside.
the racks.
Yeah. So, well, there's nothing being stored there anymore. So,
But I will say United Rentals came out on top.
Oh yeah,
It
that's
seems
just
like
fine,
most
isn't
of
it?
their equipment that's out here is fine. The SpaceX lost this for sure, but most of the United Rentals stuff I've seen out here seems to be in good condition, and they've actually lost quite a bit of equipment. A lot of insurance claims over the years at various, especially at the launch site. So
Now, while we're talking about equipment, we've had a really interesting question from Capsax in the chat, which is, how heavy do you think the stand is? Can the LR 11,000 lift it, or do they need to get the sliding floor working to get the stand out?
Ooh, that's good.
That is a good question.
I'm pretty positive the crane can lift it if they wanted to. Getting the stand out or clearing off the top of this would probably be the best way, so they can just bring SPMTs in here and move it. But theoretically, you could weld some brackets onto here that you can actually, attach some slings onto for the crane and then lift it off. That might be faster, depending on how much in a rush they are to get this off. They may not necessarily need to at the moment because there's so much other cleanup work that there's no reason to prioritize this and have to involve the crane in that situation. So,
have you got any shots of? Was there a crane near Lattice at the time? Have you got any shots of that?
I think we
Yeah,
do.
it's this one.
It was like
How's that
mostly
crane looking?
intact, so it's fine.
this is the biggest W in my opinion, because damaging this would have been a major deal for Buckner. I think they have more
those
of
things
them,
aren't
but
very cheap
this is
either.
no, definitely not. And this is why, like at the launch site, they usually lay these down just in case. But it seems this is one of the big things I was worried about getting damaged. But it seems like it's fine. I don't even see too much debris over in this area in general, honestly.
Yeah, the test tank itself as well seems like pretty fine. Like, I don't think that's going to be a concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got off very lucky there, didn't they? There's a question here about whether any critical hardware that's been stored in that tent has been lost. Based on the damage to the tent, can we see any damage to things stored inside there? Or does it seem like
there's
the
nothing left
empty
in
racks?
there.
Yeah,
There's
you can't
nothing,
make
man.
out anything in there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, isn't there? All looks blackened, really.
Yeah, anything that could burn did burn.
Well, I suspect
Except for
those
these
things
pipes
may be
waiting inside.
unserviceable for a little while. Everything inside that container might be okay. They can take a beating.
Yeah, these look like they burned from the inside, though.
Oh, you know what? They do, actually.
Yeah, a lot of the shipping containers are like all burnt up and messed up.
I'm wondering if that kind of sooty residue on the top is from the fabric, though. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's
difficult to say.
I've got a bunch of people talking about the PES door. I suspect they may have joined in the stream a little bit later. You wanna revisit that topic a little bit? I think we have other shots of that as well.
I mean, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, it got flung way off. I don't know if there's anything more to it.
That's in surprisingly good
it
shape,
didn't
really,
get
isn't
stuck.
it? Yeah.
Successfully deploy the door, man.
SpaceX
Yeah.
has learned how to deploy a door. It just takes a little bit more energy than they'd have liked.
Okay.
Oh, you can see that fire still burning there, can't you?
Oh
Yeah. Definitely.
So much little bits of activity here.
Multiple fires still going down here. There's like at least 3 fires, 4 fires still burning from what I've been able to find so far.
We had a question about when these photos were taken as well. I don't recall the exact time, but I remember we were doing these operations around, I'll say 7 p.m. local yesterday. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
there.
something like 6, 7 p.m. Yeah.
6, 7 p.m. odd. Just before sunset, we managed to catch some pictures, so we get some great little shadows as well. Really good clarity, actually. I'm glad that we got such good shots. Someone's reopened the V2 versus V3 topic here. Tom Mosher says rebuilding for V2 handling seems less than useful as it's already obsolete. You guys reckon they'll skip straight to V3, or do you think they're going to try and salvage what they have for V2?
I mean, in terms of test hardware, I think they'll skip straight to V3. Remains to be seen what they do with the ships themselves in terms of flying. I have not made up my mind yet, I know that, but...
Yeah, one of my big things has always been to try and think about things the way SpaceX thinks about them. I like to attempt to predict things before they happen, and in order to do that, you got to think the way that they think, and and oftentimes that means thinking the way that Elon thinks. And I have a feeling that he does not want to scrap those last 2 ships. But
Yeah.
at that point, it'll be up to the teams to convince him that that's the best pathway forward.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what happens. The timeline will be interesting, especially with the pressure that SpaceX has placed on themselves, of course, with Mars 2026, which is, I hate to say it, seeming really, really tricky now. And HLS as well, which they've made less progress towards than they'd have liked. So there's going to have to be some tricky management decisions now. They obviously can't rush, because rushing, some would argue, is what got them there.
I'm not even sure on that because, I mean, HLS is a fun topic to begin with because,
So
of course,
it
they
is.
want to do their whole Mars push. So it's kind of tangentially related to human systems there, but it's not clear on what the future of HLS is.
What a lovely bit of shot of the skin there. You have any idea what part of ship that's from?
That is, it looks like a tank, part of a tank, because that has the little braces over where the rings are connected. But otherwise, I couldn't tell which tank it's from.
Well, if these pipes are attached to it, it almost looks like part of the nose cone section, or maybe the aft section where, let's see, this might give it away.
Well, well, that would be one of the 2 vents. Oh, yeah, hold on. Look at the shape of it. So that would be the oxygen, the top of the oxygen tank. As you can see, you can very vaguely see the shape of the welds, and it's just got the shape of the double plate that they have over the. Actually, yeah, you can see it on the other side. So, wait, hold on. I gotta look at a photo here, because you can see the other vent there, the other set of 2 vents. So, let's see. I'm just gonna pull the Starship laser photo or something. That would be the methane tank. Yeah. You want to zoom in on those vents again, you see those 2 ports. Not there, but on the other side.
These 2?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right there. So that would be methane tank, top of the methane tank.
While we deliberate over this, we've just put out a poll in the YouTube chat in IGW fashion. What do you think is going to happen? Do you reckon they'll skip with V2 or skip to V3? You can answer now. You don't get a prize for getting it right, but you do get a little feeling of satisfaction, I guess.
It is amazing how some sections, like literally not a single tile survived. They're just shattered and
they're everywhere, aren't they?
Here.
Yeah. Well, I guess they're pushing the limits on their structure, aren't they? Trying to make them as light as possible, so it does make sense. Oh, we've just had a $2 donation from Max West here. I think this will require your expert analysis here, Zach. Can it still fly?
Definitely not.
Reckon it can rebuild
it did fly.
For a time.
Fly for sure.
For a time, yeah. Good lord. Yeah, even Mars 2700 says they can rebuild S-36. You're more than welcome to try, my friend. Well, you're not. I mean, you'd ask SpaceX for permission first. But I suspect it might be a challenge.
Yeah.
All I'll say is I'd like to not see any more ships.
Okay, I was just thinking about this piece for a second. If you want to go back to the 2 events that you can actually see the backside of, that's the first time we've seen the straws that they call them straws that are on the backside of the event. They go all the way up to the top of the dome. You can see how far it extends back.
Yeah,
it's the first time we've seen those as well.
They're quite large.
Very interesting.
Very interesting, yeah. Another $2.
There are 4 vents on the methane tank.
At the same level? There's 4. Yeah.
Okay.
Another $2 here come in from Pete's Guide. Thank you very much for that. He asks, S-37 spin prime stacked on B-16, then launch.
No.
There you go.
I mean, so SpaceX says differently, but I don't believe them in this, where that they say that spin primes are entirely locks. I don't believe that because of the Booster 7 explosion. Like I don't believe that. So yeah, you would basically be pushing out both gaseous oxygen and methane on top of the hot stage ring. So that wouldn't be a good idea. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they could possibly do to skip. I mean, theoretically, you could do a spin prime on the ground, like at the ship cryo station. You could do a spin prime on. Oh no, you can't even do that because there's no way to get methane to this cryo station over here. So if there was a way to get methane over there, you could theoretically put a ship transport stand here because they actually did that at one point. The first cryo test that they did here was on a ship transport stand before they had built the actual cryo testing station. So it should be the perfect height in order to interface with the ship on a transport stand. But yeah, you'd only be able to get liquid nitrogen and oxygen to here. You wouldn't be able to get methane there, and obviously the methane farm is completely destroyed right now. So
Yeah.
I don't think
They
there's a way around this
could,
unless they're willing to fly without static fire testing.
if I'm recalling correctly, they didn't like fully demolish the old ship cryo stand at the launch site. Still
They did.
the foundation there.
The
Oh,
pipes are buried. They buried them in cement, basically.
that sucks.
Yeah.
Dig them up, I guess. I don't know.
I do just want
You
to
could.
I just want to give a really quick thank you to Drunar and Risco Crane Free for the 5 gift memberships and $20 respectively. Thank you very much. Briscoe Crane says, great shots, great stream, go Interstellar Gateway. Thank you, we do try. There's some cool stuff here to analyze.
And I may have to hop out of here soon. I have a few things I gotta take care of today, but we should see if there's any more questions in the chat for sure.
Yeah, guys,
Right.
questions, keep them coming. There's so many things we can look into here, and we've got so many photos that we can show you. We will release these photos to members, so if you aren't already a member, do consider becoming one. It's not that expensive, maybe a cup or two of coffee, and you'll get access to the full library, exclusive access. So have a look-see. I think it's worth it. Here's a question, an interesting one. It's a timeline question from Axonaria. Do we think they can still do a propellant transfer demonstration this year?
Well, yeah, no. Especially
Ouch.
now, no.
That's a pessimistic response, but it may be informed.
I mean,
Yeah, I think it's
sure, but like even before this incident, like it wasn't even scheduled to be this year. So
yeah, they've got a lot of things to
yeah.
prove before they get to that point, don't they?
Yes, quite a lot.
And they've also got Raptor 3 to validate as well.
Oh,
Wish
that's
they
a
would
whole
post more
other
about
part
it,
of this
but-
equation.
Yeah, it's a whole nother topic. All of this has been Raptor 2. Imagine all the can of worms that Raptor 3 opens up.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice. I've been trying to figure out basically everything on this engine. I'm pretty close. The main issue I'm having right now is still the oxygen preburner. That's still a problem. I was hoping we'd see some of that from these, like if they split one of them open, but nope. All the oxygen power heads are intact. So boo, but yeah, I mean we'll see how that goes.
You know what? Raptor 3 is actually quite an interesting topic. For those who aren't really aware of the latest SpaceX development, you want to tell us a bit more about what Raptor 3 actually is, how it differs, what we know so far?
I think there's a lot that can be said on that.
Drop your truth nuke,
I
my
would not
friend.
know where I would not know where to start, man. Like,
well, I mean, I
suppose
guess that's
generally-
if
the
you could send
improvements
me
of
a
the
render
Raptor
or something if you wanted to. You could send me a render or something if you wanted to talk about it.
guess so, yeah. I mean, let's see. It's gonna take a little bit.
That's alright, take your time.
I've been
In
working.
the meanwhile,
Yeah.
we can hunt for questions in the meanwhile, while you look for that. Got a little question here from Hendrik YT. We can go through this quickly. What tanks store what? So throughout Massey's, what tanks are responsible for what? And they're also interested in what survived and what didn't.
So basically, all of these over here are all liquid nitrogen. Then these ones right here, there's 5 liquid oxygen tanks plus 3 more liquid oxygen tanks. This is a vertical liquid oxygen tank. This is a future methane tank. And there's methane, 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 nitrogen, methane, nitrogen, water, 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 water. So yeah, they kind of divide everything up so that everything is all within the same area. So ideally, I think they would have had just one big liquid oxygen farm, one big nitrogen farm with all tanks this size, because that would have reduced the footprint and allowed them to do other things. Like, for example, one thing that I think they wish they could do is have a second static fire test stand. So that would be ideal. There's not exactly a ton of room for that, though. Especially with the position of the methane farm, I don't think that it's really possible to put another static fire stand, and it would have to go like right here. Theoretically, I suppose you could put one right here, but that wouldn't be good in the current situation, because then you would have damaged both of them. I really think no matter where you put a second one, you would have had some damage on it. So, yeah. But most likely location, if there were to be a second one, in my opinion, would be right here.
Yeah, thank you for that, Zach. We'll have to see what happens. I believe TSE wants to talk about Raptor 3, if I'm not wrong, and I believe our stream manager actually has a comparison image ready to pull up.
He does as well. So yeah, Zach, I just sent those images over to you, just a couple of them. So I'm not sure how long I'm going to go on about this, but...
There we go, we've got it up on stream now.
I mean, that's what Emlen's got here. I just sent some of the CAD things I was working on to Zach. Yeah, there we go. So, I mean, I have a couple things going on here. Pretty much what you see in the photos, but there's also a lot more. So, Raptor 3 generally, lots of removing of a lot of flanges. Lots of things are just now welded together. Hot gas manifold is oddly a different shape. I'm not exactly... That's the one thing I don't know why they did. It's like square now. Not really square, but you see, it has corners. It's
Are you talking about
odd, but yeah, the hot gas manifold. You know how it, yeah. So not sure why they did that, but I mean, there's a lot of things I'm not sure why they did, but that's just one of the weirder ones. So yeah, the backside of the engine here got a lot of things people miss. There's a second set of valves on the backside that I don't see a lot of people like doing, because I've seen a lot of people making renders of this. There's a set of valves back there, but it's barely visible, so that's fun.
Yeah, and they've never really shown it, right? They've only shown it from one angle.
I mean, we've seen a little bit of it on an NSF flyover, and then we've seen like a little bit of it on one of the static fire images, or actually 2 of the static fire images. But it's like barely there. But it is there, that's what matters. So, yeah, I mean, you can see especially the methane turbo pump and the methane preburner, which is that shorter stack on the left side in this image, has all been pretty much unified. There's only one flange on the top there. There's also only the one flange on the top of the oxygen turbo pump, right on the, up there and at the hot gas manifold. So on Raptor 4, they said they wanted to eliminate that one. Otherwise, I mean, I'm not sure what else they would change for Raptor 4, but we're not talking about Raptor 4 here. But yeah, I mean, just generally everything else moving internally. Cooling channels are interesting because it's not actually everywhere. Like, I think some people are thinking, like, they think every single surface has the regen channels in it. A lot of it is just the power head and the preburner. That is a little bit of a cutaway. The oxygen preburner is completely empty because I'm still trying to figure that out, so ignore that part on the oxygen power head. But other than that, it should be kind of close to what we're seeing inside of the engine. Yeah, a lot of that. The preburner should still be, the methane preburner should still be roughly the same between 1 and 2, or 2 and 3. God. But, yeah, I mean, otherwise there's still a lot of things I have to do for this, but, yeah, I've been working on this for a while. The injector, I don't imagine, is much different from 2 in terms of geometry. Same with a lot of the other, like, just the main injector. I don't think there's going to be a lot of major internal geometry changes. A lot of this is just taking what was previously outside. Like all of those valve assemblies are now just those two on both sides of the engine between the power heads. And of course, moving everything else inside the outer skin, which kind of works as blast protection. Speaking of blast protection, if you want to move on to that last image, because there is some shielding, but it's not like a lot. It's really only around the top up there at the whatever you would call that, the gimbal brick, and then the 2 TVC actuators. Those are the only parts that are being shielded. Other than that, it's kind of open. It's up in the air on whether the valve assemblies on both sides will have their own shields. We've seen, like, on the initial renders way back in 2024, I think that was last year? Yeah, when we first got the render of that, it had shielding around the valve assembly, but we haven't seen anything that shows that since, so we'll see. But other than that, it's completely unshielded. That's just what it'll look like in flight.
That is a really, really good little render, though. You've done quite well on that.
Thanks.
Yeah, how do you
right.
figure out the internal stuff? Is it kind of like a little bit of guesswork on that?
A lot of, yeah, I mean, a lot of general, like, engine architecture is pretty standard in terms of, like, you can still see things on the outside and figure out what's on the inside roughly enough, and you can also just run some quick napkin math, like see like how many impeller vanes you need on each one for because we know the rough RPM that the thing runs at, and we know the flow rate of each pump. So you can kind of figure out where's the optimal part for each of these things, like especially like the inducer it's a monoblade inducer. We actually saw that way back with Raptor 1, like an actual photo from, I think, SN9, because it blew itself to pieces. But so it's a monoblade inducer. It has 6 vanes, I think it was, something like that. Yeah, but you can figure out the kind of all of this if you can look at the external. You can just see features externally, kind of do some vibes, kind of guesswork, but then you can run some knack and math, just kind of figure out roughly what the case is for a lot of this. A lot of it's also recovered, like, because again, these things are exploding semi-frequently, so sometimes pieces end up turning up, and so there are sometimes cases where you can actually see what the parts look like.
Right, especially now, I guess you've kind of got some images to validate a lot of those decisions, haven't you, with some of these Raptors being tossed around in different angles? Oh, sorry, this is Raptor 3 even, not Raptor 2. Well, you will have, I'm sure, Raptor 3 images as well to validate from soon. We'll have to see what happens.
All right, I think that's it for Raptor 3.
I think that's about it for Raptor 3. Yeah, I think we'll have to see how efficient it is and how reliable it is. I mean, they are pushing the boundaries, but we'll see if we have this. We'll see if we have this ready to queue up. But if you do like Raptor and if you do like engine architectures, we do actually have a little bit of merch designed especially for you. Let's see if we can pull that up on stream.
Ooh, that's true. Actually, I almost forgot about that.
We'll see if there it is. There it is. Look at that. That is a beautiful, beautiful little thing. That is your Raptor right there on a very nice little shirt. This picture was actually taken at Starbase. There's no Photoshop here. Modeled by our very own Joshua.
And
so if this does interest you,
the flow diagram on the back there.
Yeah, lovely little thing. If this does interest you, and you do want to show off to all your friends and family that you're a nerd who looks at stainless steel tanks for too long, then go check out shop.igw.com. IGW.LLC. We have got some really cool stuff on there, and hopefully stuff that's a little bit fashionable to wear around as well. On the shoulders, we've got a picture of that as well. We've also got some nice little Raptor cards as well. So there's detail kind of all around here. Look at that. That's awesome. If you do like this, go check it out. We have a 10% off discount code just for this special occasion, which is methane check. So go take a look, shop.igw.llc.
Funny.
Yeah, we can see Perigee in the chat there being very enthusiastic that we're pushing 10% off. I mean, 10% off
Okay.
on everything.
I hate to interrupt, but just kind of because we're talking about Massey's this whole stream, they are out there with a skid steer right now, starting to clear debris. So there you go.
Interesting. So I guess they've proven it safe. Have those fires finally gone out?
I suppose, yeah. And they've got looks like a crane out there now too. Yeah. What we see here is pretty much the most we will, I believe, because other than from this point on, debris is going to start disappearing and being shoved who knows where. So we won't see much more than this.
Yeah, I mean, we were very, very lucky to get that aircraft up the time we did, just when things were still kind of burning and in the immediate aftermath. This is the best view you'll ever get, really. I mean, opportunity slips away now, so very lucky we could get it. If you want unfiltered access to absolutely everything, please do check out our membership. I know I've talked a lot about membership and merch, but it is that support that lets us do what we do. I've got an interesting question here from Bo Mai, which maybe Zach might have some input on if he's still with us, which is why certain tanks are vertical while others are horizontal. Is there any reasoning behind that?
I think it's just for space constraints, but usually most of the vertical ones are nitrogen except for the ones inside of the methane farm. But yeah, I think it really is primarily due to like space constraints. And like I said a few minutes ago, I am currently working on an episode explaining literally everything at Massey's. So I'll have some more information on that. There are some details I'm still trying to work out, but I would say I feel like at this point I could probably do orientation tours for new SpaceX hires of Massey's. But yeah, quite a lot of things going on here. Spent probably 2 weeks looking at a year and a half's worth of images to figure out most of this stuff. So yeah, quite a lot going on, but I'll have more information on that stuff within the next 2 weeks, I think.
Well, you know what? We're going to test that information right now, Zach. We've had another interesting question from Ayush, who asks, what things would need to change at this test site to support V3 ships versus V2?
So one of the big things is probably related to kind of comes back to Raptors. So like the Raptor 3s are going to have different input parameters for like gases and liquids. So the ground hardware basically has to be able to support that. So anytime you change like internal pressures inside the vehicle, then you also have to change ground support hardware in order to enable that. So like, for example, if they all of a sudden decide that they want to store, or they want their tank pressure to be at 6 bar instead of 5.5, then you have to change all of the hardware that for the gas distribution system in order to actually supply gas at the pressures that you need. And the same thing with COPVs. Like if you have different types or sizes of COPVs in there, you may have to start supplying different volumes of different gases. So like, for example, with the fire suppression system, I didn't notice them do this, but probably because at the launch site, they already have all those commodities there. But, you know, if you increase the amount of nitrogen that you're storing on board, then you have to also increase the amount of nitrogen you're able to provide on site. So things like that change with the ship. Also, you're going to have a new QD, so everything related to that QD is going to change. So obviously they deleted the gantry where that QD is going to be, but it's similar to basically what's happening over here on the booster test stand, where they had to remove one QD so that they can install 2 new ones to fit the new style booster QDs. So essentially the same thing that's happening here as far as completely redesigning this has to happen over here, and technically down here as well too. They're going to have to redo the ship cryo station. They basically are waiting for the last ship, the last V2 ship, before they start doing that, which would be ship 38, I think. So 37 is already done the cryo test, if I remember correctly. So they're waiting for, once 38 does its first cryo test, all of this stuff will be retrofitted. And then after ship 38's static fire, assuming they decide to continue working with those V2 ships, then they would have to come back and redo the gantry and some of the stuff within the actual tank farm as well too.
It's definitely the kind of situation
one more
where...
thing.
Oh, go on.
Well, they're going to have Raptor 3s on the new ship, which are more powerful. Like even if they test them at their lowest throttle setting, which they're probably going to do a range of throttle settings, you probably have to increase the amount of pressure you're able to deliver with the deluge system in order to compensate for that. So that's another thing that would probably change, is adding additional heat exchangers in here so that they're able to supply water faster.
I think it's definitely one of those circumstances where one system requires one change, and that change requires another, and that change requires another, and you end up redesigning kind of half the plumbing, don't you? So it is a bit of a Herculean task, even if it looks deceptively simple. I mean, with each ship, you do have vastly different chemical requirements and pressure requirements, and that's the consequence of iterating fast. All of your support equipment has to iterate as well. We've had another question here, kind of a general question, which is, do you think those cryo tanks are usable? Apparently, Oliver has heard talk of them being compromised, and he's wondering if really they can be serviced again.
These two will probably get replaced. I think the methane tanks might actually be good, but they're going to replace those anyways because they have a larger horizontal tank, and there's no need to have 3 of these. That's just excessive because you're never going to use that much. So yeah, this one may be good. This is just a reclamation tank where basically for detanking and separating gaseous methane from liquid methane, and then they send it over to this what do you call this again? I want to call it a burn pit, but it's not a burn pit. A flare stack. Yeah. So they send all of the, instead of recovering the gaseous methane like they do at the launch site, they actually just burn it off here. Yeah, that's actually a thing I'm curious about right now, because the pipework for this is kind of damaged. So I'm wondering where they're flaring at, or if these tanks have already been emptied, which I expect they may have. Yeah, so lots of things involved in safing the site as well too, which I'm still thinking about that stuff. I need to look at some of this a bit closer.
Yeah, and I guess another kind of question for the both of you, as people who are quite familiar with timelines and with how long things generally take at SpaceX. We've got Aaron Goldner, who's asking what the prognosis is. What does this mean, really, for the near future?
Can you repeat that question?
The question is, what's the prognosis? What does this failure mean for the near future of Starship testing?
You want to take that one?
You can.
Okay. Well, as far as future things go, they'll have to rebuild Massey's to a degree, obviously, but in terms of failure for the ship, I don't think this falls under the whole, like, the payload is the data thing, because they did not even get to an experimental point in this test campaign or flight. This is supposed to be a routine test. I would personally call this a failure. I know there's still some people who would disagree with that, but this is pretty bad. Yeah, I would say it's bad in terms of both vehicle progress and, of course, the damage to the ground systems. But it is still good data if, like, because now at least maybe they'll have like better quality assurance. Hopefully, maybe we'll see. But we don't know what happened to the COPV. We don't know exactly what caused the failure. We only have the initial analysis, so I'm not sure if we can make the argument that they got good data or not, if it was like a new procedure. Otherwise, I would call this a failure. It would,
I think it's a very disappointing circumstance when the thing that failed was possibly not even something that was actually designed by SpaceX themselves. I mean, we know that SpaceX contracts out the production of a lot of these little components like COPVs, and so if this was an external component that maybe was mishandled at SpaceX that failed and destroyed the vehicle, there's no data really to glean from that if everything else was healthy. So it is, I can imagine it's extremely disappointing, especially, I imagine, for the TPS team, who are probably now going to have to rebuild their experiment the
yeah.
fourth time in a row. Oh, sorry, the fifth time in a
Yeah.
row, right?
Yeah,
I
fifth
mean,
time.
yeah, fifth time. So
It's not good.
yeah, no, I'm worried about them. I'm worried about them. So I do hope that
And
they'll be doing
we
okay. It's probably going to take quite a while before we get to that point of testing again.
yeah.
Got an interesting little question here, kind of a thermodynamics question from Slowpoke80. Not sure if we can answer this, but how do they measure the amount of cryofluid in a tank?
The tanks have sensors on them, level sensors on them. So they have those on the water tanks and also on all of the cryo tanks. So they probably potentially use weight as well too, so they can measure the weight. And that they probably have two different methods. So probably an ultrasonic level sensor. I doubt they have float sensors in these, where you just have like a tube on the inside with a ball in it, and it like floats, and that's how you measure it. I doubt they use something like that in cryogenic applications, but it's probably an ultrasonic sensor, which is basically just a sensor that sends sound waves into the tank, and based on the time it takes for the sound waves to return, it tells them how far the surface of the fluid is, and that tells them the volume.
That's a pretty good answer, actually. Measuring fluids is more difficult than it seems on the surface, I think. It's one of those things. It's one of those things where it's like measuring pressures. It's one of those things where you'd think it'd be as easy as putting a sensor in, but when you're working with massive amounts of fluids, you end up having inconsistencies and all kinds of problems. But that's a discussion we can have another day. I think we've been talking for quite a while now, actually, 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it has been a pleasure having
Wow.
up to 900 of you here. Especially a pleasure having a little sound there. Especially a pleasure having Zach and TSE join us. Zach, thanks very much for coming on. I do look
Yeah,
forward.
of course.
To
Thanks
that
for
episode.
inviting me on the show.
Yeah, it's been great. I do look forward to that episode, and we'll have to see what happens there. If you haven't already, do check out his YouTube channel. What's the exact name of that YouTube channel, Zach?
CSI Starbase. So yeah, my episodes usually come out like once every 2 months or so. So it's a lot of times where I end up getting close to finishing, and then something like this happens, and I have to go and redo parts of it. But that's where I'm at now, where I gotta rework a lot of stuff I did in order to fit in. I was doing past, present, and now I have to do past, present, and future a little bit in that episode. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
Hopefully,
kind of how
in the
we
next 2
feel.
weeks, that'll be done.
It's definitely how I feel. I've been working on the Starship series here at Interstellar Gateway, and every single time I think I can have a little bit of free time to crack on, Starship explodes again. So I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping now we can at least focus in for a bit. But we are still doing things here at Interstellar Gateway. Don't go anywhere. Just after we close out here, we're going to play a little teaser of a video we're releasing very, very soon that documents everything we did with Project Skyfall. So if you recall, for the last Starship flight, we sent out some people I say some people as if they're not our CEO and a couple of videographers from our own team. We sent them out to a remote island in the middle of, really in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of miles away from any kind of large city, to record Starship flying overhead, whatever happened, whether it would re-enter, whether it would fly over successfully. And they ended up getting some pretty awesome shots, but most importantly, they've recorded everything. So we're really looking forward to showing you that. We do have a little teaser for you. But just before that, I do have to thank you all, of course, for watching and for your generosity. It is fantastic to see so many of you here contributing. If you missed the introduction, we are Interstellar Gateway. We're an aerospace media company that loves all things aerospace. We film rockets, we film jets, we film really whatever goes to space and comes back, and we do so in pretty exciting ways. So do check out our YouTube channel, our X page, everything like that. We do have really good things to show you. CSE, anything you want to add?
Not really. I mean, as far as the images here go, we are publishing a video version of all of this later. So like actually recapping all of these like interesting bits of hardware that we've seen. Otherwise, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, I think that calls it. Everyone, thank you so much for being here, and we hope you enjoy this little teaser that we have for the Skyfall video. Thank you.